Well, with us in the studio is Azuka Ogugua, who is the spokesperson for the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission. And at our Overflow studio is lawyer and Arise analyst Frank Tietie. Thank you, both of you, for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Let me begin with you, Ms. Ogugua. I mean, you've been tracking constituency projects for quite some years now. What exactly would you say the common thread has been in your findings so far in terms of not just the amount that's been set aside? I mean, since 1999, about 2 trillion naira has gone into constituency projects. Would you say from your findings that they've been worth it in terms of deliverables? What are your findings?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. The first thing I would say is that our findings have been published in the reports and they're available online. And one thread that runs across all of them is, first of all, that we see 3 categories of projects or 3 categories of infractions. First is the suspicious projects, which we have found to be really very prevalent. Suspicious projects are projects that are very fluid in nature, soft-natured. You can't trace them. And this includes these empowerment projects, empowerment trainings. And at the end of the day, you can't say who has been trained and who has benefited from the empowerment. The next type of projects are projects outside the mandate of the agencies. Some agencies have projects inserted in their budgets that have nothing to do with the ability to execute it. So out of mandate, and then inserted projects are, whereby an MDA proposes that this is the budget they are able to execute in a year. And then at the end of the day, they find that their budget has been increased over and above what they proposed. And so they don't actually have the capacity to implement. So in such ways, there are so many irregularities along that line, and that has really helped, that has really made the money to disappear into the thin air. We can't find it, and that's a major challenge for ICPC.
Well, we'll come back to you. Let's quickly bring in Frank. Frank, let's see if we can take you a little bit back in time. 2016, I recall then, the minister at that point in time, Babatunde Raji Fashola, Minister of Works and Housing, did say, first he said, the lawmakers should try as much as possible to make their constituency projects better defined, as Ogugua had said. And specifically, he mentioned then, he said, look at roads. You can come together and talk about roads. At least everyone can say, we are working on this road. And in 2019, the Vice President, then Yemi Osinbajo, speaking through Babafemi Ojudu, also spoke about constituency projects, where he specifically said, well, your business is just about on lawmaking. Don't go there. So, Frank, why are we still enmeshed in this whole, misery of constituency projects?
I think we're not being sincere if we expect Nigerian lawmakers to limit themselves to debates in the National Assembly. These are individual Nigerians that spent time and money to campaign, making promises across their constituencies, and they got voted, and they serve as representatives, not necessarily as persons who are debating the principles of lawmaking in the hope of making better laws for Nigeria. That is not the only role they play. They are actually direct representatives of the people. The expectation is that they know their people and their constituencies better than anyone else. So public servants, policymakers, and those making plans on behalf of the government can't sit in Abuja and begin to make proposals as to the appropriate projects needed in various constituencies in the hinterlands, in the bush, and in other parts of the country. It is expected that the idea of constituency project is supposed to be a fantastic innovation of the Nigerian government, giving an opportunity for members of the National Assembly and indeed other assemblies, state houses of assembly, to participate in the allocation, the authoritative allocation of resources. It has been abused. It has been, noted for much of corruption. But there's a group of persons we are not mentioning. For every procurement that is made, it involves public servants working in the various civil service, whether federal civil service or the state civil service services, I would say. Now, there is a director who is there, who approves the money, that there is a project that has been completed and the money is paid. We don't talk about those persons. Right. Those persons who compromise, who issue certificates of completion, whereas the projects are not completed, projects are not even done, but they issue processes for payment. Those persons ought to be considered for prosecution. I close this segment by saying that the ICPC must understand that it has to operate beyond political correctness, in the sense that it cannot, wait until it receives petition. We should be able to name names. It's an independent institution that is supposed to prevent corruption and not waiting for us to allow these things to happen, and then we begin to run after these people.
All right, Frank, very great one you posed to Madam ICPC. Let me just put it that way. But you'll get her response to that once we come back from listening to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who actually started the whole constituency project idea. Let's hear what he has to say about it.
And it's happening, through the viral video, courtesy Channels TV.
Yes.
What of the so-called constituency projects, which is a veritable source of corruption? These constituency projects are spread over the budget for members of the National Assembly, for which they are the initiator and the contractor, directly or by proxy, and money will be fully drawn, with the project only partially executed or not executed at all. The National Assembly cabal of today is worse than any cabal that anybody may find anywhere in our national governance system. Members of the National Assembly pay themselves allowances for staff and offices they do not have or maintain. Once you are a member, you are co-opted, and your mouth is stuffed with rottenness and corruption that you cannot opt out, as you go home with not less than 15 million naira a month for a senator and 10 million naira a month for a member of House of Representatives. The National Assembly is a den of corruption by a gang of unarmed robbers.
Very strong words from former President Olusegun Obasanjo, their gang of unarmed robbers. And this statement was actually made in 2017 by former president there, Madam ICPC. So I wonder what you have to say about what the former president just said there. But more importantly, the point raised by Frank Tietie earlier before we took that sound bite. How come the ICPC is not able to prevent, some of these infractions, stop them from happening before they do? And when they do, really, do you have the capacity to apprehend?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us.
So we do have the capacity to apprehend, and we have been apprehending. In fact, recently we arraigned a public servant who was supposed to be the supervisor of a project for certifying projects completed when they were actually not completed. When there are infractions in constituency projects, please do not only look in one direction. There are the legislators, the sponsors of the project, but you also have, like Frank said, the public servants. That are the ones that approve the projects, that are the ones that execute the projects. And then you have the contractors. All these three categories of persons are actually being investigated right now and prosecuted by ICPC for infractions concerning constituency projects. So it's a virus, I don't know what to call it, that has really eaten deep into the society. But ICPC does not wait for petitions to come before we deal with issues concerning constituency projects. We actually encourage the community to report, yes, but we work with a lot of partners in tracking constituency projects. We work with civil society, we work with the media, and since we are not everywhere at once, we tell people wherever you see an infraction, let us know. But we initiated the tracking so that we will go out of our way. We select projects that are up to a particular amount of money and projects that are related to issues that touch the Nigerian public closely: education, health, water resources, and power. And these are basic needs that every Nigerian feels. So when selecting projects, I saw the thousands that are voted every year. We can't track the thousands. Of course, we don't have the capacity to track the thousands. So we select with a steering committee and we go into the field by ourselves. We don't wait for people. When we are tracking projects, the objective of the tracking is twofold. One is to make sure that the people actually get the services they deserve to get. So when we are on the field and we see these projects are not executed, we do two things. We either get the contractors to return to site, complete the project, or make sure the project performs up to the real quantity and quality that you should have it. That's one. Then on the other hand, then you get punished for it because you don't get scot-free. And many times we get the contractors to return money that should have been used for this project. So government doesn't lose, the people don't lose. So there are many ways we tackle the issue. It's not by waiting for people to report.
Madam Ogugua, if you ask me, this is it goes beyond ICPC. So let's come back to Frank. Frank, it's about the people's representatives, and they must do something tangible, something that you can see and feel. It comes back to what we heard earlier, 7 years ago, from former President Olusegun Obasanjo. How can we, as a people, gauge first what our representatives are doing and also ask questions by helping agencies like ICPC and others pursue those who are trying to be very funny and very, very, well, corrupt in their acts when it comes to giving when in fact they're not giving? Frank.
See, we do ourselves a big disservice if we keep denigrating the National Assembly, making them the scapegoat of the corrupt entity or the corrupt system we run in this country. Ideally, a member of the National Assembly has got nothing to do with the implementation of budget. He does have constitutional powers. The National Assembly does have constitutional powers to make the budget, to make the Appropriation Act. The National Assembly has the powers to determine.
No, Frank, it's not about the budget. Sorry to cut you. It's not about the budget. I'm talking about the constituency projects. The ICPC has said that there are some who come with some kind of fictitious and bogus claim, and at the end of the day, there's nothing. So I want us to stay on that.
I want to submit to you that the ICPC does have the capacity to track all of the constituency projects. I say that on good authority, in the sense that monies are paid and there are procurements that are made, and it ought not to involve any member whatsoever of the National Assembly. So I agree with what Madam ICPC has said, that yes, it is able to follow these monies and then in working with civil society, but it does on its own, able to pick the single document, which is the budget, and able to now track as to monies that have been released, and then asking questions. So I can tell you, like you rightly said, a number of government initiatives, even that of the Ministry of Special Duties at the time, that have the ability to actually determine the progress of projects, constituency projects.
Okay,
the unfortunate thing,
if we can quickly bring it back, because I'd like, Madam Ogugua to respond to that. Do you really have, the capacity to, subject these constituency projects to clear auditing every step of the way, Madam Ogugua? Do you have that capacity at ICPC, and do you follow the money?
When I say the capacity, yes, I'm talking about the manpower.
Right.
And when I say we are working with civil society, I'm not saying that we depend on civil society to start or to even do the tracking. Our officers go on the field. But what I mean is that there are thousands of constituency projects. We have limited manpower.
Okay.
And so we can't, I mean, I'm just talking about reality here. But we do select, we do track the budget, we follow the money, we make sure that we get to the bottom of it, because you have to delineate your scope. There's no research you do and you do 100% of everything. So you decide on your scope. There was a time we were taking projects that are 100 million and above. And that now seems to have the effect of making it look as if we are only after the Senate. And we are not only after the Senate, because it's only in the Senate that they get such monies voted for their projects. And it made it look as if we are after the principal officers, because the principal officers of the Senate get more allocation for their constituency projects. But that wasn't our objective. So we look at the scope and then we do some random sampling. That's what I mean by capacity. I'm not talking about we don't have the the intellectual capacity to do it, just the manpower.
All right. Well, it must be stated that there's an attempt to bring back the bill that was actually thrown out to legitimize constituency projects, where they're actually asking for 20% of the national budget, should be appropriated for constituency projects. We'll have to leave it there. Frank Tietie, a RISE analyst, thank you so much. He's also a lawyer. And of course, Azuka Ogugua, a spokesperson of the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC. Thank you, both of you, for joining us.